Hi everybody, it's Oksana, and today I'm going to show you how to make this curly wire wrapped bead pendant. This is using a Lampwork bead, and this pendant involves a bead that has a large hole in it. Some Lampwork beads can have a pretty thick hole through them. Or other types of beads, but if you have a really small hole, then this may not work. So I'm just warning you kind of ahead of time. You have to be able to fit, I'm able to fit 4 20 gauge wires through here, so just so you're aware of that. But this is a very quick and easy project, and it's great for beginners because it just involves some 20 gauge wire. You don't have to do any weaving at all. So I would say that this is a great beginner project, and you can also add some little beads and things to these loops to make it even more decorated. This one's just plain, it doesn't have any of that, but I have done that. I've added like little tiny copper beads as well, and that looks neat. So if you want to see how to make this, then just keep watching. Starting with 2 pieces of dead soft round copper wire, 20 gauge, and they are they're really long, maybe like 24 inches or so, or 20 inches. And what I'm basically going to do is I'm holding them right next to each other, these 2 pieces, and I'm trying to fold them in half to determine the center of them, which is right up here. So once I have done that, you can take your round nose pliers as well, but I'm taking my bail making pliers, and I'm making the bail just simply by making a loop, and then taking my pliers. Actually, let me hold it like this so you can see better. And just straightening those wires up so I can have them, be next to each other. Like this. So this is going to be my bail. And what I'm going to do now is I'm using a Lampwork bead. And Lampwork beads tend to have really large openings. So this will work with a Lampwork bead, but it may not work with other types of beads that have smaller holes. Like I know most gemstone beads that I own have pretty small holes. So, and I'm sure every Lampwork bead is different, but the ones that I get that my mom actually makes and gives to me have a pretty large hole. So actually this ends up being 4 wires, because it's 2 and then they're folded in half. They fit through this bead. You may try using a thinner gauge if yours don't fit, if you have a different kind of bead. But basically, the goal here is just to get all of these through. And I know the bail gets separated, but then you can just put it back together. Let me try to figure out which wire to pull on here to get this down in there. I'm just going to separate these 4 wires and pull on them one by one. There we go. This is one of the wires, I think. So, once you do that, I like to separate this out because I like the look of this better for a bail, kind of more open. Basically, this is, let me see, this is going to be my front of my bead. So what you're going to do down here is separate these wires 2 and 2. Doesn't really matter like which 2 and which 2, just kind of separate them like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start working on one side now. See how they're right next to each other? Like one is not on top of the other. They're right next to each other, so you can see both of the wires. I'm going to try and keep it like that by squeezing them with my fingers to keep that shape, or that positioning rather. And then I am just twisting it into a loop kind of shape like this, keeping them that nice next to each other kind of positioning. You can use your pliers too, especially if your wires start to like get one on top of each other. You can just squish them down to make sure they're flat next to each other again. So this part is just very like organic. You just make loops however you want, whichever direction you want. You can make them all, you know, one way, or like I'm doing here, they're kind of going opposite ways. But this part is basically just making lots of loops to go up one side, and then the same exact thing on the other side. They're just going to go up the other side as well. You can make them large or you can make them small. It's really up to you, but the key thing really, in my opinion anyways, is to keep the wires kind of like flat right next to each other, because I think that is what looks the nicest. That's what gives you kind of that double wire look. And I'm kind of bending it so that, let me fix my bail here, got a little too funky. There we go. So now I'm going to bend it in the same direction again, instead of the opposite like I have been doing, just to mix things up. And I'm pretty much at the end here. Actually, I might do one more little loop. So I'm very close to my bail. So I'm just going to try and make this a tiny little loop. Alright, so now I am at my bail. So what I'm going to do is I'm bending these wires back and around my bail. Just to secure them. You can do it I'm sure in another way, but this is kind of quick and easy this way. I'm just gonna mess around with my bail a little bit. I want maybe this curl to kind of be almost like in front of it. It could be like a hidden bail if you wanted it to be. You could hide it with your curls and loops. So here's one side. Here's my wires on the back. What I'm going to do, I think, is take the longer of the two wires and make a little loop around these other two wires that are coming out of the bead hole here. Just loop it around and just close up the loop. And then this one, I'll probably just make like a decorative loop or something with it. So now, these 2 wires, so what I'm going to do is, I want this to kind of flow. I want it to go all the way around my bead. So I'm going to curve it in this direction, because if I curve it in this direction, I'll have a loop here, and then I'll have just kind of like an empty space in between them. And this may take a little bit of practice to get your little loops to come out nice, since it's mostly by hand. So don't get discouraged if your wires are separating or just kind of like going on top of one another. Maybe even just cut some, or take a piece of spare wire and just practice making these kinds of like a double wire loop until you're happy with the way that they're turning out for you. Alright, so So here's what it's looking like from the front. Almost done. Alright, so probably just like one more little curl, and then we'll be good. There we go. So we are good. I'm going to just put these wires just right through here to the back. I'm just going to pull them with my pliers. So here they are. I'm just bending them. To lock this in place, I'm going to fix that last little curl that got bent out of shape. There we go. Oops. So that is it. Almost. Just have to finish off these little wire ends. What you can do is you can just cut them, or you can make like little decorative curls out of them too if you want. I'm going to secure these around my bail. So see how I'm just putting it through there? Just using my round nose pliers. That. And this one just needs to be trimmed a little bit. Alright, so now they're locked in place, so to speak. And let me cut this other one as well. So it's just a little bit shorter here. And just make a little loop to get that wire out of the way. Something like that. So here it is from the back, just one little wire going down the back. And here's my bail. It ends up being kind of hidden. And these things turn out pretty differently every time because of the loops. Depends on how you do the loops and what direction you do them in. I'm sure that yours probably looks, you know, at least a little different from mine. And you can kind of manipulate things here at the end however you'd like. If you feel that, you know, some of these need to lie closer to the bead or be smaller or larger, you can just kind of try to adjust them a little bit here. But basically that's it. And that's my little curly wire wrapped bead pendant. So thank you so much for watching.